Hi, I'm Joshua, and you're watching Taped with Rabbi Doug.
We're gonna see Rabbi Doug. We're gonna see Rabbi Doug. We're gonna see Rabbi Doug on your TV tonight. But Daddy, I want to watch Monday Night Football.
Forget about Monday Night Football. There's no other thing we're going to watch on Monday but Rabbi Doug.
Yeah, Rabbi Doug on TV tonight. We're going to see Rabbi Doug. Oh, everybody talk about Doug.
Shalom and welcome to Tape with Rabbi Doug. We are here at Ateres Ayala in Skokie for the Simon Wiesenthal Center sponsored rally for Israel against terrorism. As it says, hold Hamas accountable for crimes against humanity. Act now. I know it's backwards. We'll catch that the right direction too. Stay with us. The program is about to begin, and join us here at this support rally for Israel on Taped with Rabbi Doug. This is Rabbi Abraham Cooper, former guest on Tape with Rabbi Doug.
I want to recognize Gil Hoffman, who's been on the front line of this battle, both sides, as a soldier and now on another important front line, which is the war of words and ideas. I'm going to do my best to not be so rabbinic tonight, but forgive me, there are three or four points I want to bring home from our perspective. On October 8th, the day after the horrific attacks, a young Palestinian woman, a protester in the UK, I believe it was Manchester, walked over to a Jew and wagged her finger at the Jew and said, "Remember where you were in the 1940s. We Jews have never forgotten, though much of the world has." Been with the Simon Wiesenthal Center for 46 years. I had the honor and privilege of knowing and working with the late, great Simon Wiesenthal for 29 of those years. I never thought I would utter the following words to you. These Nazis are worse than the Nazis who carried out the orders of the final solution. How could you say such a thing? Simon Wiesenthal heroically brought 1,100 Nazi war criminals before the bar of justice over his amazing career from the day he was liberated by U.S. troops in Mauthausen until his death when he was 96 years old. It could have been 11,000 or even more, but one of the fundamental challenges to the few people who actually cared about that issue was the fact that the Nazis strove to erase, to obliterate, to remove all evidence of their mass murders until it became so overwhelming that they ultimately failed. But it had a great impact on many of those cases. You've already heard from the Council General that October 7th was the day of this largest mass murder of Jews since the defeat of Hitler in 1945. These Nazis live streamed their murders. These Nazis took videos of what they did to our sisters and brothers and mothers and grandparents and, yes, babies. These Nazis who have the phones of so many of the people that they kidnapped and raped. You know some of the details. I won't go into the gory, horrific details. But they would then call a family member or a friend, show the suffering of the loved one, and then execute them live. The world demands a ceasefire. Were there calls for ceasefires at Normandy or in Berlin in 1945? Here's our answer to the young Palestinian protester in Manchester, and I'm afraid thousands and thousands of others who have embraced, who have internalized, who are promoting the narrative of terrorist Hamas. 2023 is not 1940s. But we were taught a key lesson about survival at Auschwitz. I want to share with you, some of you may have known this great person, Rabbi Hirsch Meisels, Zatzal, who lived in Chicago, I believe, for decades, who wrote an amazing sefer called the Kadshei Hashem. In it, he shares a story that stays with me every day. He was part of forced labor at Auschwitz. At the end of those horrific days when they stumbled back to get a few hours, 3 or 4 people on the boards that passed for beds, Rabbi Meisels, you know what he did? He urged the people in his group, all kinds of Jews, give him a few more minutes. He wants to share a Dvar Torah with them. A Dvar Torah at Auschwitz. But many came to him, lookouts, worried about the capos. If they'd been caught, they'd all be executed. And he said an amazing thing that's based on one letter in the alphabet. We all know that when Moses came before Pharaoh the first time, it was a complete disaster. And Pharaoh wanted to put a nail in the coffin of these supposed 2 leaders, and he decided to tell the taskmasters, Lo tosifun, no more, don't add any of those ingredients that they need to build the pyramids. From now on, let the slaves get up an hour or 2 earlier, and they'll learn once and for all not to listen to this wild-eyed guy by name of Moses. What Rabbi Tzvi points out is if you look in Shemot, the word tosifun means to give extra, to give more, v'hosif. But if you look at the word, it has an aleph in it. And so it comes from the root of asefa, of gathering. And what he said was, at Auschwitz, to people who did not know if they would live another day, every single tyrant, every enemy of the Jewish people, they understood better than us what happens when even 2 Jews get together. What happens when tomorrow you're going to make those 2 or 3 phone calls or do a Zoom with people in Eretz Israel? They know that when you have 2 Jews together, 3 Jews together, 1,000, 2,000 Jews together, that's a force that cannot be broken. And so Pharaoh actually made 2 zeros. 1, hit them physically, make them work harder, and number 2, hit them spiritually. Don't let Jews come together. And you know what we learned from Rabbi Hirsch Meisels? From Auschwitz? Exactly a lesson that maybe took all the way to 2023 for us to internalize. It took the Hamas barbarians who checked off every single crime against humanity imaginable to wake the Jewish people out of its slumber. We have no choice. We all have differences, but the most important lesson is the lesson that was taught by Pharaoh, by Hitler, by Stalin, and by, unfortunately, now Hamas. They know, our enemies know better, know best of what it means for Jews to come together. The second lesson. I was with Mr. Wiesenthal in 1980, not far from here, I think in Ohio. I was young then, but I'm not now, so I can't remember exactly where. But I remember the question from a young person in the audience. And he asked him an interesting question. Mr. Wiesenthal, were you surprised how many Nazis there were in Europe? His answer, no, I wasn't surprised by how many Nazis there were in Europe, but I was shocked by how few anti-Nazis there were in Europe. We thank President Biden for the moral clarity that he showed in the collective hug to the Jewish people. In which every thinking person could understand that Hamas is evil. And yet, there are so many people today, powerful people in the United States of America, who won't say a word, for whom nothing has changed. We'd like to urge President Biden to convene a meeting at the White House with the CEOs of the major corporations, with the university presidents who correctly spoke out for Black Lives Matter, who collectively spoke out for the suffering people in the Ukraine. But when it comes to dead Jews, we hear only crickets. We need more anti-Nazis. That's a job for each of us here. Number three, I guess this is why we have Yom Kippur. For decades, the Simon Wiesenthal Center has been an NGO at the United Nations. On Tuesday morning, I'll be at the UN. I'll meet with the number 2 guy there, who's a wonderful, wonderful human being. But if you look at what's been going on at the UN, especially at the United Nations Human Rights Council, where immediately after the mass murder of our loved ones, they called for a moment of silence for Palestinians. Not a word about Jews. Believe it or not, later this week, Iran will assume the chair of the United Nations Human Rights Council Social Forum. We hope everyone here will sign our petition to President Biden to thank him, but also to ask the United Nations to lead an international call to hold today's Nazis, their enablers, their sponsors, culpable before the bar of justice. And above all, we demand that all hostages be immediately released. Finally, I want to quote another Gadol who spent decades here in Chicago, Rabbi Doug. We just read Parshat Noah on Shabbat, and in there, God used the rainbow as the sign, as the covenant with humanity, that he would never bring an end to humanity again the way the flood basically did. And Rav Soloveitchik, brilliant scholar, but also great understanding of the human condition, he points out just 2 items about the rainbow. Number 1, God was telling the survivors then, and telling us now, that rays of sunlight can penetrate the most ominous clouds. He said, quote, "Don't become desperate when you see members of society deviating from the right path, quote unquote. Secondly, the rainbow symbolizes the diversity of humankind. Rainbow is result of refraction of the sun's rays from a single white light that creates the entire spectrum of colors. We are not alone. This is not 1939. And it wasn't just the amazing pastor who I wish maybe someday would be my cousin. But throughout the crowd this evening, last week when we had 7,500 marchers at the Simon Wiesenthal Center in Los Angeles, earlier today when our close friend, Pastor Johnny Moore, spoke on behalf of the hostages at a rally right in front of the United Nations headquarters in Geneva. We are not alone. And we must thank our fellow faith leaders, the churches who on the 8th, the day after, tens of millions of Christians prayed for their souls. We must thank them. We must thank them. And I think beyond the religious obligations that Christians and Muslims and others feel, I think they absorbed one other lesson that Simon Wiesenthal left us. He always said, it always begins with the Jews. It never ends with the Jews. God bless you.
This is Illinois State Senator Laura Fine. I'm taped with Rabbi Doug at the Rally for Solidarity with Israel in Skokie.
Good evening, everyone. First, I want to thank the Simon Wiesenthal Center and Allison Slovin for organizing this essential event. And thank you to all of you for being with us tonight. It is comforting to be here together this evening. In our darkest times, the strength and support of our community is what reminds us that we are not alone. These past few weeks, we have experienced a roller coaster of emotions: shock, fear, anger, confusion, incredible sadness, and heartbreak. Our world has been shaken and our lives forever changed. But we go on. We wake every day to face a new challenge. We are resilient. The power of our resiliency stems from the support of our incredible Jewish community. Leaders like Alderwoman Deborah Silverstein, who bravely stood up for our Jewish community in the City Council despite animosity and threats of violence. We are forever grateful. Our community is here for us in a time of need. It offers us a network of care and connections. The strength of our community is the bright light in this time of darkness. We can depend upon each other to help fight feelings of hopelessness. Surrounding ourselves with our friends, family, and neighbors reminds us that we are not alone. It allows us to feel we're part of something larger than ourselves. As we navigate the unthinkable, uncertain, difficult time, it is incredibly helpful to have people who we can turn to. Community members offer us emotional support and the strength that we need. Relying upon our community eliminates that feeling of isolation. We have people to talk to pray with, to cry with. The safety of our community is like a big hug when you really need it. Together, we will navigate these uncharted waters. Glimmers of hope, like the release of our neighbors, remind us never to give up hope. Hope for the safe return of all of our loved ones. Hope for peace. We have to keep hope alive for future generations. We are strong, we are supportive, and we are resilient. A few years ago, I experienced the enormous impact of the strength of our Jewish community. My husband and I visited Auschwitz, and we were overwhelmed with sadness and emotion. Just when we thought we could no longer digest the horrors, our Jewish community reminded us of the importance of strength, support, hope, and the future. You see, it was at that moment a group of Israeli teens walked through the gates of the camp. They were draped in Israeli flags, singing Hatikva. Hope is alive. Together, we will ensure our community survives and thrives. Again, like the Israeli national anthem reminds us, Hatikva, hope. Am Yisrael Chai.
This is Pastor Chris Hayes.
My friend Allison, Steve, Rabbi, Consul General. On my neighbor, Penina, Nefesh Yehudi,
Let me introduce you to Rob Derdinger, who is the CEO of Alpha Epsilon Pi Fraternity.
Good evening, everybody. You may ask yourself, why is the CEO of a fraternity here to talk to us? I'm not the CEO of just any fraternity, I'm the CEO of Alpha Epsilon Pi Fraternity. Alpha Epsilon Pi, AE Pi, as it may be known to some of you, is a loud, proud, Jewish and Zionist fraternity. AE Pi is the Jewish community's fraternity. It is your fraternity. We represent undergraduates on over 155 college campuses throughout North America, United Kingdom, and Israel. We have over 8,500 active undergraduates and 110,000 alumni. We have 3 chapters in Israel with over 50 undergraduate members currently called into active duty in the IDF on the front lines of Gaza and in the north. Over 200 more alums are serving active duty in the Israeli military. Our undergraduates in Israel who are not serving in active duty have been activated to bring critical supplies to their brothers in service. But AEPI is not just in Israel. As the Council General referred to, North American college campuses are another front to this war. Just as they always have been, they're the epicenter of politics and policy in our country. Anti-Semitism on campus is ever present, and we know the histories of systemic anti-Semitism on campuses. In recent memory, from around the year 2000 to 2019, anti-Israel activity was really at the forefront. In 2019 to 2023, we saw a pretty rapid, dramatic shift toward what I call classic anti-Semitism. Either way, there was no need to hide behind anti-Zionism, but in the last 2 weeks, we have seen the collaboration and consolidation of all of these forms of anti-Semitism on campus. We know it when we see it. We know what it is. In the last 2 weeks, over 43 sleeper cells of Students for Justice in Palestine have been reactivated. And I call these sleeper cells because organizations that support and promote terrorism are themselves terrorist organizations, and they need to be referred to as. The scary part is that these are recognized student organizations on campus. They often receive university resources and university funding. They likely exist at your alma mater. In the last 2 weeks, 144 substantial anti-Israel activations have occurred on campuses. AEPI has tracked 70 different anti-Semitic incidents. 6 AEPI houses have been vandalized, and just this weekend, 2 of our members were physically assaulted on campus. AEPI is ready to lead. Day in and day out, for many, many years, we have prepared our undergraduates because we know the truth that we read in the Haggadah every year. In every generation, an enemy will rise up against you. 8,500 activist AEPIs are on campus fighting back against SJP activists and demanding that administrations take action. These activists will not let false narratives be the only narratives on campus. Fight to your state representatives and ensure that our public universities do not fund organizations that excuse terrorism and promote anti-Semitism. And if we must write to the Department of Higher Education to demand enforcement of Title VI. I'm gonna end. We will win. We will win on campus. We will win this war in Israel because we are strong and because Hashem is with us.
Well, that's it from Ateres Ayala, the Simon Wiesenthal Center Solidarity for Israel Rally. Remember, you can check out our website, www.tvrabbi.com, or email us at info@tvrabbi.com. We pray for peace in Israel. We pray for an end to terrorism, and hope to see you next time in the world of love and peace on Take with Rabbi Doug.
2 or 3 hours. What does it matter? This night of our life together. Come on, let's get together. Man and boy, put together we will stand. Every boy, girl, woman, and man.
This has been a Taped with Rabbi Doug production.